We all know that opportunity and utilization is the name of the game in fantasy football, and one of the more difficult positions to navigate is the wide receiver position, but don't fear. Y'all came to the right place. It's Thursday, but we ain't thirsty, baby. We're talking Trinity, the things that the wide receivers are doing in their respective offenses to score fantasy points to help you take home a chip. Came to the right damn place because we're going to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown. We're going to talk about the young rookie stud out in Minnesota, Jordan Addison. And you know we got to talk about one of the best wide receivers of all time, Davante Adams, and his situation out west in Las Vegas. Appreciate y'all tapping in. We got a good one. 10 players that we're going to tap into today. Some you may be a little concerned about, and some you may need to go acquire. So let's get into the Trinity right after the intro, baby. Appreciate everybody being in the building. Y'all know who it is, your boy Ray G. You can find me on X at RayGQ. If it's your first time tapping into the content on the channel, thank you for being here, giving me a little bit of your time today. And if you stick around to the end of the video, you find this joint actionable and or entertaining, subscribe, baby. We're dropping stuff day and night over here, from sports betting, fantasy football, live shows. We got you covered. Destination Devi is the place to be. And if you've been here before, y'all know what we're about to do. About to have a damn good time. But let's dive into it. I've got 10 players that I want to talk about. 5 on one end of the spectrum and 5 on the other end of the spectrum. Let's have a conversation and dive into some Trinity over on DestinationDevi.com. You can use this tool live right now on Destination Devi, Trinity Tracker. And you see, yes, the 5 players that we're going to talk about first. DJ Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jordan Addison, Brandon Ayuk, and Nico Collins. So I'm just going to walk you through how I use this tool and some of the findings, and let's have some takeaways from these 5 players right here. These 5 players, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, and Nico Collins, all incredible talents, all very good receivers, and all these guys are operating as their team's number 1 wide receiver currently on the season. So I always start off looking at the Trinity data tab, but let's pull this up right here. The Trinity Score versus points per game, just to get an idea of where these players are as a collective, these 5 players. So you see right here, we've got Brandon Ayuk with a nice Trinity score of 9.27, giving you about 15.6 fantasy points per game. Then you got the Sun God, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Little lower Trinity score, but look at the points per game he's giving you, about 20 points per game. You also have DJ Moore right there behind him in Trinity score, giving you 17.9 points per game. Nico Collins, 7.74 Trinity score, averaging 15.5 PPR points per game. And then way back here, you got the rookie Jordan Addison. You see that Trinity score starting to creep up week after week, 5.67, giving you 15.8 PPR points per game. Now, one of the things that you have to remember when we're using this tool, this is a tool. You still got to use some context here, so let's apply that right now. You're looking at these scores, and just for a quick reminder, if you want to be a top 6 receiver historically over the past 5 years, those players have averaged a Trinity score of 9.01. So you look at Brandon Ayuk, and the score is there to be a top 6 wide receiver in fantasy football, but below the regression line, lets you know that some other things are not happening in that offense for him to capitalize on the utilization that he's getting. Amon-Ra St. Brown right there as well, right there on the cusp of being a top 6 wide receiver historically when you're looking at Trinity Score. Now, let's break this down individually. Let's isolate these players and talk about each player. And what I always like to do is start with the Trinity data tab, because it always starts with what they're doing in their offenses. You go on the website, you could filter just these 5 players. Look at the air yard share, the target share, the yards per reception after the catch, and the score's got a lot more than these 3 things, but this is the foundation of the tool. So you always start off with target share because it's extremely important. And you look at Amon-Ra St. Brown, 30% target share, damn near incredible. Top of these 5 players that we're going to talk about. And at the bottom end of that spectrum, you do have Jordan Addison at only about 17% target share for him right now in Minnesota. Everybody else over 20%. Nico Collins right at 20. DJ Moore, 23.6% target share. And then you've got Brandon Ayuk at 27.7% target share. Yak per reception. After the catch, you start to filter this thing out. Nico Collins, DJ Moore, dogs, right? Almost 7 yards after the catch per reception for both Nico Collins and DJ Moore. Amon-Ra and Addison tied right there at 4.25 yards after the catch per reception. And Brandon Ayuk a little bit lower. Filter by air yard share, because we got to see who's getting the valuable downfield targets. Ayuk, almost a 50% air yard share. And that makes sense. No Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, not as involved in the offense, even though he did have a big game the other night. DJ Moore, 37% air yard share. Who the hell else are they throwing to in Chicago? Sun God right there at 32%. Nico Collins over 30%. And then Jordan Addison a little bit lower. And the reason why we have these 5 players in this subset that we're going to look at today is I want to talk about what they're doing respective to what they should be doing and figure out what it is that we should be doing with these players in fantasy football. So let's start with DJ Moore. Let's go back and let's take a look at DJ Moore, his expected fantasy points per game. So right now, of these 5 players, DJ Moore has the lowest expected points per game outcome of anybody on these five players that we're going to talk about. So he's giving you almost 18 points, but he's expected to be right around 12 fantasy points per game. So he's giving you 6 points over expected. Now, one of the easy things to do with this tool, with this tracker, is just pull up DJ Moore and look at his expected points versus where he should be, and just start to look around at this. So let's pull this up right now. Trinity Score versus expected. Here's it is. We clicked on that tab. Where is old DJ Moore? We know he's got a high Trinity Score, and there he is. DJ Moore giving you, doing the things in the offense to score you the type of score that should warrant you being a top 12 wide receiver. However, look how far below the regression line DJ Moore is. He should be at or above this line, and he's significantly below it. He is below it more than anybody else. Brandon Ayuk, Nico Collins, hell, even Jordan Addison is pretty much giving you exactly what he's expected to do to a degree, and we'll talk about Addison in a minute. But DJ Moore, this is, for me, one of the players that I'm a little bit weary on, and I tweeted this out a couple of weeks ago. I was very interested to see how this offense would operate absent Justin Fields, because when Fields was there and we had the one big DJ Moore blow-up game, he was incredible. And you go to the Trinity data tab, and you just look at this. Like, this just screams regression is coming. Just regression is on the way. Now, you figure out which one of these players are actually helping you win weeks. DJ Moore is WAR per game right there next to Jordan Addison. So if there's pullback on that bone, despite him getting that air yard share, the target share, something is going on in this offense, because with these numbers, he should be smashing. It's telling you right here, he should be giving us about 11.7 points per game. He's given us 18 fantasy points per game. So he's smashing because he's doing these things, because his Trinity Score is so high, right behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he's the only ticket in town. He's still maintaining a decent threshold for you right now. But if there's any disruption to the quarterback situation, DJ Moore could actually go down even lower in those expected fantasy points. And you look at his fantasy points per game right now, I mean, every week you start going back, he was way up here, and he's creeping down. Now he's right on top of that line of regression. So when I'm looking at this data, and I'm looking at DJ Moore in particular, this is one that I'm very, very cautious on moving forward. I like what's continuing to happen in this offense, despite Justin Fields not being there. They're still giving him the opportunity. We know he dropped a touchdown pass a couple of weeks ago. He's still doing the wide receiver things to score fantasy points, which he is, but just be mindful of the regression for DJ Moore. You just, again, look at him versus the rest of the players in this subset, and by far, he's doing way more than he's expected to do. Good for DJ Moore. And what's interesting about him, and I love the historical data tab, and this is really going to drive it home. And one of the things that I want to remind everybody is that Trinity Score is core. There is correlation to future fantasy success and this score at about a 60% rate from the subset of the past 5 years that we looked at from 2018 to 2022. High Trinity Score this year, 60% of the time, that means higher fantasy finish in the following year. But take a look at DJ Moore. So this is just looking at these 5 players. And DJ Moore, right here, his 2018 Trinity Score was a 5.24. 2019, 15.4 points per game. Pretty good. You look at the rest of DJ Moore's career, his Trinity is right there. So he's consistently doing the things that should yield fantasy points. 2021, 8.96 Trinity. 2020, 9.06 Trinity. 2019, 8.2 Trinity Score, and all of those are at or below the line of regression for what he should have been scoring us over the past couple of years. Then you take a look at where he's at this year, and it just feels like he's destined to fall below this line. So the takeaway from this one is, what would I do with old DJ Moore? If I have him, I'm hoping he continues to exceed expectations. But if I had an offer in my inbox based on this quarterback situation, Tyson Bagent, not knowing what's happening with Justin Fields, even though he's scoring us just 2 points fewer than Amon-Ra St. Brown, which is incredible for us, he would be one that I would not mind pivoting off of DJ Moore. Let's go back and talk about another player in here, Amon-Ra St. Brown, the sun god, giving us 20 points per game, even though he's only expected to give us about 18 points per game. So he's about 2.5 points over expected right now. You see the KTC value. He's helping you win weeks with a very high WAR per game, wins above replacement. Highly highly recommend you check out that tool on the website. You look at what he's doing. Air yard share for Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's third amongst these 5 players, right? A little bit ahead of Nico Collins. Target share for Amon-Ra St. Brown, incredible, right at 30%. And then the yak per reception, right at 4.25. It's got a Trinity score of 8.5. So when you're looking at him versus what he's expected to do, there's Amon-Ra St. Brown. There's that regression line. He's giving you a little bit over expected, but not too far away. It's not so far away that it feels like there's going to be a ton of pullback towards that line. He's still doing the type of things that are needed to score you fantasy points with the high score. This is one where even looking at the data, 2.5 points over expected, that doesn't scare me at all with Amon-Ra St. Brown. This just lets me know he's probably a damn good receiver, which we know that. And despite how good he is, he's not going too crazy to where there's going to be a significant pullback on that bone. The same way with the Brandon Ayuk. And you look at him in a ridiculously high Trinity score, being really propelled by his air yard share and Brock Purdy's propensity to put the ball downfield. But when I'm looking at Brandon Ayuk and the value that he has, you can take a look at his KTC value right here. He's valued higher than DJ Moore, Nico Collins, and right around the same spot as Jordan Addison. So he's got some pretty solid value for you. He's giving you about 15.6 fantasy points per game, but he's only expected to give you 13.6. So let's have a philosophical conversation here about Brandon Ayuk. If the narrative is play better defense, don't let Brock Purdy throw the ball so much, what do we think is going to happen? Deebo Samuel comes back. There's more targets being allocated to him. We're looking at Brandon Ayuk getting about a 28% target share. You put Deebo back on the field. You play more ball-controlled offense, pull back on Brock Purdy pass attempts. This could be a situation where I am not as concerned about Amon-Ra St. Brown being pulled back or the meat on the bone getting pulled back off of Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's pretty much the target there outside of Sam Laporta. I am a little weary of Brandon Ayuk, and I know that he's sitting at a spot right now where everything looks great. Look at him way up here. His Trinity should scream elite wide receiver 1. Remember, it'll be elite wide receiver, top 6 in Trinity score on average over the past 5 years, 9.10. So he is well above that threshold. You see him right there. But this is a tough sell for me to say that he is going to be able to come off of this bye and produce more than what he's given us right now. The data is already telling us he is doing more than he probably should. You add another body back in Deebo Samuel, the potential for San Francisco to turn around and run the ball a little bit more to keep the ball out of harm's way with Purdy throwing these damn interceptions. There's another one with Brandon Ayuk where I'm just a little, this might be a week to try to explore some options, explore some offers for Brandon Ayuk if you can get that done. Let's talk about Nico Collins. Also wanted to talk about him, giving us 15.5 fantasy points per game. Nice Trinity score for Nico Collins. 7.74 is very solid, but giving us close to 3 points over expected in this offense led by C.J. Stroud. And here's what's concerning. Despite this decent score, despite what Nico Collins is scoring us, despite the fact that the WAR is pretty good on Nico Collins as well, not as good as DJ Moore or Amon-Ra St. Brown, wins above replacement. Air yard share, 30.4%. That's fine, right? That's doable. But we rip Amon-Ra St. Brown by not getting the downfield targets, and he's got 32%. And I'd like that to be a little bit higher, 34, 35%. So the air yard share is not great. This is the more problematic thing for me, is the target share for Nico Collins, like literally at 20%. All of our data comes from PFF, so depending on the site that you use, maybe a couple of percentage points here or there. But a 20% target share is like bare minimum threshold. That's just not going to cut it long term. Yak is fantastic, but that bucket of target share is a problem for Nico Collins. So again, how I use this when I'm looking at Nico Collins, I'm looking at his KTC value and shit. It's damn near there with DJ Moore as far as what the community is telling us. This is another one. Nico Collins, some concern about some pullback on the bone with his current production versus probably where he should be. And Nico Collins right there, right below that regression line of what he should be scoring for us in fantasy football. But that's a very, very nice Trinity score. And remember for this one to be one of those back end or high end wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 13 through 24. Got to have an average Trinity score of 7.41 based on the data over the last 5 years. And Nico Collins has achieved that. So still optimistic on Nico, but just giving a little dose of reality for old Nico Collins. And let's wrap this up talking about the rookie, Jordan Addison, who is playing some great football right now, but giving you about 4 points over what he's expected to do. No Kirk Cousins. This team, I like Josh Dobbs. We'll see how that works out. The target share, only 16.5%. This is not good, y'all. And what's saving us is Jordan Addison is getting in the end zone. Not a big yak guy. Air yard share, sub 26%. Again, not good. Not good. Not great. Very good player. Awesome value. I mean, the second most valuable player on here, according to Keep Trade Cut. And he's given us almost 16 fantasy points per game, but expected to give us around 12. So when I'm looking at Addison, he's right on that regression line. He's right there with a decent, very decent Trinity score for a rookie. I think it may be one of the higher ones, him, along with Zay Flowers. You can actually filter out by draft class if you wanted to look at that. But this is how I start off every single week, taking a look at this. And one of the cool things that you can do on DD is actually just run a report. Like, we walk through all of that for each player because I wanted to tell you, Amon-Ra St. Brown, even though he's producing more than he is, I'm in. And that's a player that was a very big litmus test for Trinity Score because he's the type of guy that did not command a lot of the air yards. We know that he's a target monster, but what we're seeing this season is Detroit and Ben Johnson actually using Amon-Ra St. Brown down the field more. So hopefully if this continues and he continues to be fed like he's been fed, he's going to finish very, very high. But if you didn't want to walk through all of that stuff, check this out. You can just run a report of those 5 players, 6 players, 10 players, 12 players, and take a look at this. Amon-Ra St. Brown, you just look at this green, 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 green. The only thing that's red is his fantasy points over expected, but you could sort of explain that. Look, he might be overproducing, but that's just the byproduct of him being so damn good. You look at Brandon Ayuk, highest Trinity score on here, but the war tied right there with Nico Collins, below DJ Moore, below Jordan Addison. So while he's doing these things, he's still not scoring you what he should in order to actually help you win versus everybody else on this sheet. His expected fantasy points, 13.6. He's giving us 2 points over expected, 15.6 fantasy points per game. You could just run the report and take a look and be able to pick out pockets and windows of players that you either want to invest in or you're a little bit nervous about. So that is how you use that. Now let's walk you through another subset of players that we want to talk about, and that is our man, Davante Adams. We're going to load him up. Christian Watson. Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers second-year wide receiver. Chris Olave, New Orleans Saints wide receiver. We will be touching on him. Calvin Ridley from the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the final player that we are going to discuss out of here, I'm going to go back to old faithful, Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown. Let's get old Marquise Hollywood Brown loaded up in the tracker. So let's head over to the Trinity data tool to talk about some of these players, and Davante Adams in particular. You start to filter around the wide receiver things that he's doing to acquire to have this type of Trinity score in the 8s. Air yard share, crazy, 42%. Tops of these 5 players that we're looking at. Target share, a little lower than it's been, but still commanding a 30% target share in that offense. And we know Davante Adams at his age isn't giving you much after the catch, only about 3 yards after the catch per reception. But when you're looking at the things that Davante Adams does in order to score you points, this is why that score is so freaking high. He's still doing those things. He's expected to give you right around 17.7 fantasy points per game. He's given us 15. So he's below expectation by almost 3 fantasy points per game. His WAR, I mean, it's better than everybody on here, but 0.1, that's lower than Nico Collins. That's lower than Jordan Addison. So this is what's happening. You've got a player who's running all these routes, doing all of these things, getting the air yard share, the target share, but the points are just not there. So when you look at where Adams is, you would expect him to be able to produce a little bit more than what he's currently doing right now. And you can have reference that right here on the points per game. He's giving you 14.9. Pull up. Don't pull back. Draw up on the bone, man. Come on, Davante, because your score is saying that you should be a back end to elite wide receiver one. But the production, and we can kind of explain that away. We know the quarterback situation is abysmal in Las Vegas right now, but this is a player that as long as he's going to continue to do these wide receiver friendly things to score points, you cannot be out on Davante Adams entirely. We move around and look at some other players. Calvin Ridley is an interesting one. He's expected to give us about 13 points per game. He's given us 11.4. The Trinity isn't great. I mean, it's below Olave, below Hollywood. I mean, hell, Christian Watson's only played a handful of games, and he's catching up to Calvin Ridley. So you have to wonder what's going on in that offense. And look at the fall of his value. Currently, according to KTC, valued below Christian Watson, giving you 0.04 WAR per game, which is not much. Air yard share is very solid for Calvin Ridley at 39%, but the target's 21% target share, and he's giving you nothing after the catch. I mean, even below Davante Adams, who, again, at 32 years old or however the hell old he is, that isn't his claim to fame, and Calvin Ridley can't even give us that. So when I'm looking at what he's expected to do versus what he's currently doing right now, layered on top of what he's historically been year over year, right? That's his score. He's normally around this 5 to 6 range. I'm not saying that it's a wrap for Calvin Ridley, but this is one that if I could move him for one of the other players that we have discussed on the show, I would highly encourage doing that. This is one that it really concerns me because I don't know if there's enough in this offense for him to really realize what people want him to be. And again, just look at the data. He's expected to it's 13 points. It's not even like he's expected to give us a ton, right? It's the lowest of the 5 players that we're talking about right now, which leads me to Christian Watson. Christian Watson with Jordan Love, lowest Trinity score, giving us 8.5 fantasy points per game. But look at that. I mean, expected. I mean, that's number 1 of this list. And I believe he's number 1 overall in the entire data set. He's not doing anything from a WAR perspective. The air yard share is there. This is below Addison. This is problematic. The yak is phenomenal. Target share, he's got to be higher in this category, and it's sub 20%, which is bad. So while he's expected to only give you 13, he's giving you 8.5. I see people right now saying, go buy Christian Watson for the second half blow up. Okay, if the story that you're going to tell me for that second half blow up is he's going to continue to be targeted down the field, which he currently is at 32%, which is fine. The yak after the catch is awesome. But the target share, you got to tell me he's going to be 25% target share guy. And I don't know with Romeo Doubs, with Jaden Reed taking targets, I don't know if that's in the range of outcome for Christian Watson. But this is the level of analysis you have to go through. Are you banking on Jordan Love? Or are you like, you know what, I think I'm out on this situation? You look around at a couple of other players. Chris Olave, we've continued to talk about him on here. I'm starting to get a little worried because the expected fantasy points are so high, 17.2, much like Davante Adams. It's giving us right around 13, 12.7, gives us a plus minus of minus 4.5 for fantasy points over expected. The air yard share, phenomenal. The target share, we'll take it, 25.5%. Pretty good. Yak, you know what? It's not the best, but it's not the worst. What the hell is going on? Trinity score, 7.49. You look at where Olave is, should be producing like a high-end wide receiver 2, back-end wide receiver 1, historically based on Trinity. Derek Carr, quarterback situation. You're seeing Rashid Shaheed get in the action a little bit more. Hell, I kind of want to just pull Shaheed up and look at his stuff. But Chris Olave, another one where positive regression should continue. And I know it's tough to continue to hold on to that, but he's doing this right here, these scores, 7.49, lets me know that he's doing the type of things in his offense to be successful and score his fantasy points, even though it has not materialized for us over the past couple of weeks. Hollywood Brown, another guy who probably is getting a quarterback upgrade here in the near future, not this week with Clayton Tune, but Kyler Murray seems like he's right around the corner due to participate with that team. Hollywood should be giving us about 15.5 points per game. He's giving us 13.3, so his plus minus isn't that bad. And when I look at this and I see that Calvin Ridley's points over expected is only minus 1.9, it's like he's pretty much giving you everything that he's got based on that score. Like, that's what he should be doing. This one with Hollywood Brown, I think will change quite a bit because Kyler Murray is better than Josh Dobbs and better than Clayton Tune. So again, we had a window to buy Hollywood Brown earlier this season. That kind of closed, but I'm looking at him right now. Target share, 25%, almost 26%. Better than Olave, better than Ridley, way better than Watson. Air yard share, 36.4%. Not bad. Behind Ridley, behind Chris Olave, but higher than Christian Watson. And then the yak, Hollywood could do a little something after the catch, 3.16. And you see where he's currently sitting right now, 6.83. We go back to Hollywood and look at what he's historically been, 6.59. Where's another Hollywood? There you go, 7.64, 13 points per game. So he always does the type of things to score fantasy points. Hopefully with Kyler Murray coming back, that points over expected kind of tightens up a little bit and we start to realize that full 15. But again, if you don't want to dive through all of that, just run a report. Take a look at them right here. I mean, red, not very good for Christian Watson. We know it's a little bit skewed because he hasn't played a lot, but this Ridley thing is problematic for me. I'm a little nervous about Calvin Ridley. He's not helping you win weeks. He's not giving you close to his expected, or he's giving you close to expected, but based on his Trinity, and you look at where the points per game is, it's still damn below. Like, come on, Calvin Ridley. Like, let's get it up a little bit more. But you can just run the report for these players. So of the 5 who are underproducing right now, Davante Adams, I'm still in on taking shots at buying. Chris Olave would like to take some shots to buy. Marquise Brown would like to take some shots to buy. Ridley, probably not. I'd be more in the market to sell Calvin Ridley. And Christian Watson, I don't think you can sell him for much, so it's a wait-and-see situation. But if he can't increase that target share, and we're not seeing that increase to over 25%, 22 at least, yeah, he's not going to score you anywhere near what you need him to be to return that type of value. So there it is. Trinity, 5 up, 5 down, 10 players coming into week 9, coming off of week 8. It could either help you or hurt you in fantasy football. So this is a great use of the tool. Just wanted to explain, show some stuff, talk through 10 players, 5 that I'm a little bullish on, 5 that maybe I'm a little concerned on. Let me know what you think below about these players. Let me know what you think about the tool. I know you've been to the website to try it out. Check it out. Dive into the data. I want to hear your takeaways and outcomes. So if you stuck around to the end of the video, thank you so much for that. Hit that subscribe button, thumbs up button, comment below. Let us know what's going down and tap into everything that we're doing at Destination Devy. Wake up with Ray G tomorrow morning. We got NBA prop bets, NFL bets, all types of stuff on the channel. Thank y'all for being here. Hey, we'll see y'all next week. More Trinity talk, baby. You know what it is. We out. Peace.